the best thing you can do for a bar of soap is to put it inside a soap sack. It saves your soap, and if it has lots of eyelets like this one, which is my favorite, it will dry the soap and the sack much quicker in between uses. I also like a lightweight drawstring to secure my soap inside the sack. Now I invite you to stay till the end, where I'll show you how to make a chunkier drawstring and how to change up this pattern a little bit with a different stitch pattern like this seed stitch, which is great for exfoliating, and 2 sizes of this garter stitch. Now all 3 patterns are in one bundle at LoomaHat.store, and I'll put a link in the description. But for the sake of this video, we're going to focus on this open honeycomb pattern with the eyelets, because it's a little bit more difficult than the other 2 stitch patterns. But again, stay till the end and I'll try to walk you through as much as possible. Hey, it's Denise from LoomaHat.com, and I'm super excited to show you how to create this awesome project that's great for everyday use, and more importantly, it's an awesome gift. Alright, to complete it, you're going to need a 24 peg loom, 35 yards of worsted weight yarn, a hook, a needle, and scissors. Alright, without further ado, we're going to start with a drawstring cast on of those 24 pegs. So we're going to be knitting with a single strand of worsted weight yarn, and I'm going to attach it to my anchor peg with a simple knot. You can use a slip knot if you'd like, and we're going to take that yarn and we're going to put it between the first and last peg. Either direction doesn't matter, won't have any effect on the project. And we're going to go behind peg 1, in front of 2, behind 3, in front of 4, behind 5, and you're going to continue in that zigzag manner with your working yarn. So in and out, in and out, in and out, until you reach that peg number 1, which is back at the front. You're going to go behind peg 1 right here and bring your working yarn to the front, and you're going to lay it loosely over the next few pegs. You can use 5, 6, whatever you feel comfortable, and then hold on to that working yarn and take your hook, and starting with peg 2, you're going to take the bottom loop over the top and knit off, and then you're going to do that with every peg that has 2 loops. Then take the yarn, working yarn again, lay it over the next few pegs, and again knit off every peg that has 2 loops, one on the bottom, one on the top, and that's every other peg. And once you get back to peg 1, you'll see that it does not have 2 loops, so you're done with your cast on and we're ready for row 1. Now on row 1 only, you're going to start on peg 2 because peg 1 does not have a loop. So starting with peg 2, you're going to half wrap the peg, take the bottom loop over the top, and knit off. Now continue knitting. You're using the U-wrap version of the knit stitch, so you're half wrapping the peg, take the bottom loop over the top and knit off, and continue. You can use the flat version of the knit stitch or the true version, but we're not going to be using the E-wrap right now. For row 1, we're just going to continue to knit, taking the yarn and half wrap the peg and taking the bottom loop over the top. So just continue. Now once you knit off that last peg, which is 24, you're done with row 1, and now you're ready for row 2, and this time you'll be knitting all 24 pegs because all of your pegs have loops on them, right? So there's a bottom loop and a top loop, and again we're going to be using the U-wrap version of the knit stitch. So just continue to knit. And by the way, I just want you to note that I'm going to remove the knot off the anchor peg because at this point my yarn is secure, and you're going to continue to knit that row until you've reached peg 24, and then you'll be ready for row 3, where we're going to then start purling those 24 pegs. To do a purl stitch, you're going to take your yarn and put it under the existing loop, take your hook, and from the top you're going to scoop up the yarn to create a new loop like this one. You're going to take the loop that's on the peg off of the peg, and I'm going to use my hook, and then the new loop you created, you put that one on the peg and pull your yarn to tighten that stitch. All right, let's do that one more time, okay? I'm going to show you how to do that. From the top, you're going to scoop up the yarn to create a new loop. Take the loop that's on the peg off, and take the new loop, put it on the peg, and tighten by pulling on your yarn. Now just continue to do that. You need to finish the whole row, which is 24 pegs, and once you've done your 24 purl stitches, you're then ready for row 4. Row 4 is easy peasy in that all you're gonna do is knit 24 pegs, and you all are expert, because all you're gonna do is half wrap the peg and knit off, take the bottom loop over the top. And since you guys already know what you're doing, let me take this time to say thank you to Carol Maple from Promise Learning ATL, Penny Pitchard, Barbara Ledger, Bob Urquhart, and Joanne Clayborough for covering the cost of closed captioning. Many hugs and kisses to these folks for their kindness. Thank you guys. For this next row, we're going to be adding a new stitch. So for row 5, we're going to E-wrap 1 and then knit 1. So I'm going to show you the difference between these two versions of the knit stitch. First of all, everywhere I have a stitch marker, I'm going to E-wrap. So you see here, it's every other stitch. Where I don't have stitch markers, like here on peg 2 and peg 4, I'm going to U-wrap. So let me show you. For an E-wrap, you're going to completely wrap the peg from the back to the front. You completely wrap it and then knit off. That is an E-wrap. You know that for the U-wrap, you half wrap the peg and take the bottom loop over the top. Again, for that E-wrap, you're going to take your yarn and you're going to completely wrap the peg and take the bottom loop over the top. I do recommend that you use stitch markers. They kind of take the stress off. At least they do for me. I do have an attention deficit, and this helps me not feel so stressed. I know every time there's a stitch marker, I go ahead and I do an E-wrap. Where there isn't, I do a U-wrap. You can use tape, nail polish, or stitch markers. I have loads of different stitch markers you can purchase at LoomaHat.com. I'm sorry, LoomaHat.store. But you don't need to do that. You can mark your stitches any way you like, and many times for free. So you're going to keep knitting those 2 stitches until you're done with your row, which is at peg 24, and then you're ready for row 6, where you're going to do a yarn over, knit 2 together. Way easier than it sounds. But first, I wanted you to see what a E-wrap looks on the back. You see that it's like a knot, right? You basically twisted the knit stitch. That's why it's called a twisted stockinette stitch. And then here's your knit stitch. So that E-wrap can be unwrapped, right? And the way you're going to do that is, here we are in peg 1 where we need to do the yarn over. So we need to take that loop off that peg, you twist it to unravel it and bring it over to peg 2, and now you have 2 loops there. So take the working yarn and lay it over both pegs 1 and 2, and on peg 2 you're going to knit the 2 bottom loops together. That was your knit 2 together, and now you've done your yarn over and your knit 2 together. So here on 3, I'm going to take the loop, twist it to unravel it, and now I have an empty peg, and I take that loop and put it on the peg next to it. Now that one has 2 loops, and I take the yarn and I'm going to put them across both those pegs. And by the way, you can take those 2 loops one at a time and knit them off. You don't have to knit them together. You just have to knit that same peg. And then you go to the next peg and you do the same thing. You take your hook, take the loop off the peg, unravel that E-wrap, and bring it over to the peg next to it, where now you have 2 loops. Those 2 loops you need to knit off, not necessarily together. But here you are knitting them, well, here I am knitting them together to show you how that works. Okay, we're going to go to the next one and you're going to keep doing it. You yarn over, knit 2 together till the end. Row 7, super easy. It's just knitting your 24 pegs using the U-wrap version of the knit stitch. Super easy. You got this. Next, we're going to be doing rows 8 through 27. That's 25 rows in total. And for those rows, what you're going to do is you're going to repeat rows 3 through 7 4 more times. So rows 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You're doing that 4 more times for rows 8 through 27. So for those of you that need a visual, that here's a basically virtual piece of paper that shows you what that looks like, and you can see that we're knitting row 3, row 4, row 5, row 6, row 7 in that order 4 more times, and that is rows 8 through 27. Once you're done with those rows, then you're ready for rows 28 through 30, where you're going to knit 1, purl 1 until the end of the row. This is also known as a rib stitch, and you guys are familiar with this. It's usually a stitch pattern that's used for borders, for brims, for hat brims, right? So knit 1, purl 1 for 3 rows, rows 28, 29, and 30. And since you guys already know how to do knit stitches and purl stitches, I'm gonna let you just watch me knit using the U-wrap version of the knit stitch and a very basic purl stitch. Once you're finished with those rows, you're ready now to move on to rows 31 through 32. So just 31 and 32, all you're going to do is just knit the rows. So you knit all 24 pegs, 2 rows, and that's rows 31 through 32. You guys already know how to do this. Here again, we're only using the U-wrap version of the knit stitch. Half wrap, knit off, half wrap, knit off, and you're then ready to bind off. Yay! And let me show you this. We're going to start off slowly. We're here on peg 1, and we're going to knit peg 1 and peg 2. All right, that's because we're starting. Then we're going to take the stitch off of peg 2 and move it back to peg 1, tighten that stitch, take the bottom loop over the top, and you're going to knit off. And then you're going to take the loop off of peg 1 and you're going to move it over to peg 2. At this point, what has happened? Your peg 1 has no loop on it. You've binded off. And now you're ready to move that loop from 2 to 3. But let me show you how you're going to do it this time. Your peg 1 is empty. You're not going to knit peg 2. You're going to knit peg 3. So you knit off peg 3. Take the loop off peg 3. Move it over to peg 2, the previous peg. Tighten your stitch. take the bottom loop over the top on peg 2 and move peg 2 to peg 3, and you tighten the stitch. Now 1 and 2, you've done your bind off on those 2 pegs, here and here, and now you're ready to move to the next 2 pegs. So you notice that we're working 2 pegs at a time. So now we knit off the next peg, move the stitch to the previous peg, knit that one off, take the loop off that peg, which is peg 3, move it over to 4, tighten your stitch, and now you've binded off 3 pegs. You're going to continue to do this until you get to that last stitch, and once you tighten your stitch and you knit off, just take the loop, stretch it off, and remove it, and now your project is free from the knitting loom. Cut the working yarn and pull the yarn out, and now you're ready to just stretch your stitches. All right, and once you've done that, once you've stretched your stitches really well, because it's not going to look right if you don't do that, you can pull on the drawstring from the cast on, because we need to somewhat close the bottom. You don't want to completely close it. You're going to close it enough to where you have just a very small, kind of like a little hole. You leave that because that's going to allow your sack to dry out better, right? Make sure that you stretch your stitches on both sides, on the top and the bottom. I mean, completely. Otherwise, it's just not going to look right. Your stitch is going to look all wrong. All right, you can then get a needle and you're going to thread it with that drawstring cast on. And we're going to take the needle and we're going to feed it through those cast on stitches. And what that's going to do is it's going to secure your yarn, and it's going to make sure that this little hole doesn't get bigger, it doesn't misshape, everything's going to look right. And you're going to put that needle through those cast on loops. I normally do 2. You can do 1 time, 3 times, whatever you're comfortable with. It doesn't need to be, you know, uber secure. So that's why I only go around 2 times, and then I feel that I'm comfortable, that's good enough. And as you can see, the little hole, like I said, it's there, it's visible, it's not huge and it's not tiny. I don't want to close this up. I want to leave it open enough that I can get some air to the soap and to the fabric so that it dries up quickly. Once you've done that, once you've gone those 2 times, then I like to weave in that end in this little spot right here where you see it kind of doesn't look exactly like the rest of it. So when I'm gonna go ahead and weave in, I kind of fix that circle that goes around. You can see it. It's where the stitch pattern starts. Okay, and then I take my needle inside, because now I want to weave in from the inside, and once I feel comfortable, I cut off that excess yarn and hold on to it, because you're going to put a knot on each end, and you're going to use this piece of yarn to close up. You see how I weave it in on the top, and I can use that as my drawstring to close up my little sack. Then I go to the other end to my cast off stitches, and I'm sorry that I kind of went off camera here. I apologize, but what I'm basically doing is I'm putting it into the very top. I'm weaving it in through the top, but first I want to align it so it doesn't look like this was the last stitch. I want to neaten it up at the top, and so I sew it in a way that it looks like it's the last loop, and what it does is all looks the same. Then I take my working yarn inside the sack so that I can weave it in through some of those loops, and as you can see, I go down and then I go upward, and that secures my working yarn, that it's not going to come out if I wash it, or, you know, whatever. With excess use, it's not going to come off. Then I get my scissors and I pull on the yarn and I cut off the excess yarn, and that's it. This sack is done, and you see the number of times that I repeated that stitch pattern. Then all I'm going to do now is to take that that little piece of excess yarn that I cut off, and I'm going to put it through these top loops, and that's what I'm going to be able to use as a drawstring to secure the soap inside the little sack. And I'm going to make sure to put a knot on the other end so that my yarn doesn't unravel. This is cotton yarn. It unravels really easy, so make sure you put a knot on the end. And this is it. My little soap sack is ready for my soap. Now, like I said before, if you want a chunkier drawstring, you can do a 4-string I-cord. I don't like these, but I have a video, so I'll put a link in the description. I prefer to do this one, which is three strands of the same yarn that I used for this sack. So I do 3 strands. I make a hole to I make a knot to secure the 3 strands together, and then I'm going to be using some masking tape. You can use any tape you have to secure it to some kind of surface. By the way, you can also use a clipboard for this. I like this just to use a little piece of tape. I tape it to my working desk, and then I take my 3 strands and I do a basic braid, right? So you take the one from the right, bring it in, take the one from the left, bring it in. That's how you do a braid. So you can easily see how I'm doing this. And I'm not sure how long this string is. I want to say it's about 8 inches, but I'll have the exact measurement in the written pattern, and I apologize that I don't have the exact amount right now. But again, all I'm going to do is braid it and make a knot at the end of this to secure these 3 strands of yarn together. By the way, you can use 6 strands, 8 strands, more or less, whatever's going to work for you. Then get your scissors after you've made your 2 knots on the end to neaten it up. You're going to take it and you're going to feed it through a row of eyelets, which are the same on both. And again, you can do the thicker I-cord. I'm not a fan, only because it takes longer to dry. And then now let me explain a little bit of the seed stitch and other stitch patterns. You're going to start them the same with the same cast on and the 2 rows of knits, and then you're just going to go into the stitch pattern, which for the seed stitch is 1 row of knit 1, purl 1, followed by a row of purl 1, knit 1, and you're just going to continue to do that for the length of that you want your sack to be. Okay. And guys, if you like these kind of projects, please be sure to subscribe and don't forget to hit the bell so you don't miss anything. All right, now the next thing I want you to take note of is that you can change the size, right? So here you're going to do the same top parts on it, right? 1 row of the open eyelet, and then your knit you cast off the same way, but you always start the same. So in a garter stitch, you're going to start the same with the same cast on and the 2 rows of knits. And then the garter stitch, which in this case is I do it a little different. I do 2 rows of knit stitches and then 1 row of garter, and just repeat that for the length that you want. And then, like I said, your top part, which is 1 row of eyelets, and then your rows of knit stitches you cast off, and there you have it. And don't forget that all 3 patterns are detailed, written out for you at LoomaHat.store. It's a bundle of 3. Thanks for watching to the end. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to share the video. It helps me big time, and I hope you'll decide to come back and loom knit with me again.